I never thought my life would unravel over a single dinner. We were sitting at our usual spot at the dining table, my wife, Julia, across from me, our two kids, Noah and Lily, chatting about school between bites of pasta. It was a regular evening, nothing out of the ordinary. At least, that's what I believed. Until Julia put down her fork, folded her hands neatly, and said the words that would rip my world apart. "I'm leaving," she announced, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. "I've met someone else." The room fell silent. Even the kids stopped talking, their forks frozen midair. I blinked at her, waiting for the punchline, the laugh, the just kidding, that never came. "You're, what?" I managed to get out. Julia sighed, as if I were the one being difficult. "I didn't want it to come out like this, but I can't keep pretending. His name is Daniel. He's successful, he cares about me, and he can give me and the kids a better life." A better life. The words echoed in my head like a bad joke. I glanced at Noah and Lily, expecting them to look as shocked as I felt, but something in the way they avoided my eyes sent a cold wave through me. "You told them?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Julia hesitated. "I had to. They deserve to know what's happening." I gripped the edge of the table to keep my hands from shaking. "And what exactly is happening?" Julia exhaled, like I was too slow to understand. "Daniel has money, real money. He can provide things we never could, opportunities for them, security for me. We're moving in with him this weekend." This weekend. She had planned everything. She had made up her mind. And just like that, my family, my life, was slipping through my fingers. I turned to my children. "Is this what you want?" Noah, my 12-year-old, wouldn't meet my gaze. Lily, barely 9, swallowed hard. "Mom says it's for the best," she murmured. I wanted to argue, to fight, to tell them money wasn't everything. But I saw it in Julia's eyes, she had already won. And just like that, I was alone. The silence in the house was unbearable. For 12 years, this home had been filled with laughter, little feet running through the halls, and the soft hum of bedtime stories. Now, it was just me. The weekend came and went in a blur. Julia packed their things efficiently, methodically, as if she had been planning this for months. Maybe she had. Noah and Lily didn't fight it. They hugged me goodbye, but there was something missing, something hesitant, like they were already drifting away from me. I told them I loved them, that they could call me any time, but the truth settled like a stone in my chest. They were moving on. I tried to keep myself busy. Work, errands, fixing things around the house that didn't need fixing. But at night, the silence pressed in from all sides. No bedtime stories. No little voices calling out, "Dad, one more minute?" Just me and my thoughts. And one of those thoughts, the one I hated the most, whispered that maybe Julia was right. Maybe Daniel could give them a better life. I wasn't poor, but I wasn't wealthy either. I had a stable job, a decent house, and enough to get by. But Daniel? He was a millionaire. He had a house that belonged in magazines, vacations in places I couldn't even pronounce, and a lifestyle that Julia had clearly decided was worth trading our life for. I tried not to resent him. I tried not to resent her. But most of all, I tried not to resent the kids for going along with it. But the loneliness was unbearable. Until the phone call came. It had been 3 months since Julia left. 3 months of quiet, of routine, of pretending I was okay. Then, one evening, my phone rang. It was Noah. I almost didn't believe it. He hadn't called me once since he left. Sure, I sent texts, sometimes I got short replies, sometimes nothing at all. I told myself they were busy adjusting to their new life, their new home, their new father figure. But now, he was calling. "Noah?" I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad," his voice was small, hesitant. Can we come over?" "We?" My heart pounded. "Of course. Are you okay? What's wrong?" A pause. Then, quieter, I just wanna be home. I didn't question it. I didn't push. Come home, buddy, I said. I'll be right here. An hour later, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Noah and Lily stood there, their backpacks slung over their shoulders, looking smaller than I remembered. Before I could say anything, Lily launched herself at me, burying her face in my chest. I missed you, Daddy, she whispered. Noah looked up at me, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. You're the best dad, he said. Something inside me cracked, and I realized, whatever had happened in that millionaire's house, whatever had driven them back here, this was where they truly belonged. But I also knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a visit. Something had happened. Something they weren't telling me. And I was going to find out what. The first thing I noticed was how different they looked. Noah, my confident, talkative boy, stood stiffly, his hands gripping the straps of his backpack like he was ready to run at any moment. Lily, who used to giggle at everything, barely smiled. Something had happened. I led them inside, trying to act normal. You guys hungry? I can make some grilled cheese. Lily nodded eagerly. Noah hesitated, then nodded too. That was my first clue. Noah never hesitated about food. I kept my questions to myself for now. Instead, I let them settle in. The moment Lily saw her old stuffed animals still sitting on her bed, she climbed up and hugged them, like she was afraid they'd disappear. Noah, meanwhile, sat on the couch, staring at nothing. We ate dinner in a strange, quiet calm. I told them funny stories about work, about how I nearly broke the coffee machine trying to fix it. Usually, that would earn at least a smile. But Noah just pushed his food around his plate. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I set my fork down. Guys, what's going on? Lily kept her eyes down. Noah glanced at her, then at me. Mom doesn't know we're here, he admitted. That sent a chill down my spine. You didn't tell her you were coming? No, Noah said. And, we don't want to go back. I stared at them, my heart pounding. Why? Noah hesitated. Then, finally, he said, because Daniel isn't who Mom thinks he is. I leaned forward. What do you mean? Noah swallowed hard. Lily hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter. There's something wrong with him, Dad, Noah said. Something really wrong. And just like that, I knew this wasn't just about missing home. This was something much, much bigger. I forced myself to stay calm, but my mind was already racing. Okay, I said carefully, keeping my voice steady. Tell me what's wrong with Daniel. Noah and Lily exchanged a glance. Lily bit her lip, her small hands clutching her stuffed rabbit so tightly that its ears were twisted. Noah, always the protector, took a deep breath. He's different when Mom's not around, Noah admitted. At first, he was nice. He bought us things, took us places. But after a while, he got weird. Lily nodded. He doesn't like when we make noise, she whispered. I frowned. What do you mean? Noah clenched his jaw. One time, Lily was just singing in her room, not even loud. And he just walked in and stared at her. I turned to Lily. What did he say? She looked down at her plate. Nothing, she mumbled. He just stood there. Watching me. And then he said, little girls should be quiet. I felt my hands tighten into fists under the table. Noah continued. And it's not just that. He's controlling, Dad. Like, really controlling. He gets mad when we don't do things exactly how he wants. The other day, I sat on the couch wrong, Dad, and he told me, that's not how we sit in this house. A cold feeling spread through my chest. This wasn't just about strict rules. This was something else. Did he hurt you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Noah hesitated. Not exactly. But he scares us, Dad. Lily's eyes welled up with tears. I don't want to go back, she whispered. I reached out and pulled them both into a hug. "You're not going back," I said firmly. "Not until we figure this out." But inside, my mind was already working. I needed to know more. I needed to know exactly what kind of man my children had been living with. And most of all, I needed to make sure they never had to set foot in that house again. That night, I let them sleep in their old rooms, but I barely slept at all. I sat in the dim light of the kitchen, staring at my phone, debating my next move. Calling Julia seemed obvious, but what if she didn't believe me? What if she forced them to go back? I needed proof. The next morning, while the kids were still asleep, I did the only thing I could think of. I started digging. Daniel Westwood. Wealthy investor. Big house, multiple properties, donations to charities. On paper, he looked perfect. But something didn't sit right with me. I kept searching, combing through news articles, financial records, anything I could find. And then, buried deep in an old business journal, I found it. A lawsuit. 10 years ago, Daniel had been accused of embezzling millions from a company he helped run. The case was settled quietly, no charges, no trial, but the company collapsed soon after. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then I found something even worse. An old police report. No arrests, no convictions. Just a single complaint filed by a former fiancé. "He's dangerous," she had written. "Manipulative. Controlling." I had to leave before it was too late. That was all. No follow-up, no details. But I knew what I was looking at. Daniel wasn't just strict. He wasn't just wealthy and controlling. He was dangerous. And my kids had been living under his roof. I shut my laptop, my pulse racing. I had to be smart about this. Julia wouldn't just take my word for it. Daniel had money, influence. He could easily twist things in his favor. I needed to talk to her. I needed to convince her before it was too late. And I had a feeling that time was already running out. I called Julia that morning. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey," she said, her tone cautious. "Why are you calling so early?" I took a breath. "Noah and Lily are with me." Silence. Then, "I know. I was about to call you. They left without telling me." "Because they're scared, Julia." I kept my voice steady. "They don't want to go back." A sharp exhale. "Oh, come on, they're being dramatic. Daniel is strict, sure, but he's not dangerous." I clenched my jaw. "Are you sure about that? What is that supposed to mean?" I hesitated, debating how much to reveal. I looked into him. "Did you know he was accused of embezzlement? That one of his exes filed a police report against him?" Julia scoffed. "That was years ago, and the case was dropped. You don't know the full story." "And neither do you," I shot back. "That woman called him dangerous. My kids are telling me the same thing. Doesn't that make you wonder?" She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Daniel loves them, okay? He's providing for them in ways we never could." I nearly laughed. "Providing what? Fear? Stability," she snapped. "Opportunities. A future." I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting my rising anger. "Noah said Daniel punishes him for sitting the wrong way on the couch. Lily told me he stands in her doorway just watching her. How does that sound like stability to you?" Julia hesitated. He's just particular about things. He likes order." "Julia," I said firmly, "this is not normal. You need to listen to them." "I am listening," she insisted. "And I'll talk to Daniel. But you can't just keep them from me." "I'm not," I said. "But I won't send them back until I know they're safe." Her breath hitched. "That's not your decision to make." "Then prove me wrong," I challenged. "Talk to Noah and Lily. Alone. Really listen to them. And if they still say they're afraid, will you at least consider that I might be right? She didn't answer right away. Finally, she sighed. Fine. I'll come over after work. I hung up, my gut churning. I wanted to believe Julia would put the kids first. But something told me Daniel wouldn't let go of his control so easily. And I had a sinking feeling this was only the beginning. Julia arrived that evening, pulling into the driveway just as the sun dipped below the horizon. I watched from the window as she sat in her car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel like she was bracing herself. When she finally stepped out, she looked composed, but I could see the tension in her eyes. I opened the door before she could knock. "Where are they?" she asked, not bothering with a greeting. "They're in the living room," I said. "But before you go in, Julia, just listen to them. Don't dismiss what they say." She exhaled sharply. I wouldn't do that. I didn't argue. We both knew she would. When she stepped into the living room, Lily was curled up on the couch with her stuffed rabbit, while Noah sat beside her, his expression guarded. At the sight of their mother, I saw a flicker of relief in their eyes, followed immediately by hesitation. "Mom," Noah said cautiously. Julia forced a smile. "Hey, sweetheart." She sat down on the couch across from them. "You guys really scared me, leaving like that. You should have told me." Lily looked down at her rabbit. "We didn't think you'd listen." Julia flinched, but quickly masked it. "Of course I would have listened." Noah shook his head. "No, you wouldn't. You never do." A beat of silence. I expected Julia to protest, to tell them they were wrong, but instead, she swallowed hard. "Then tell me now." Noah and Lily exchanged a glance. "He's not who you think he is, Mom," Noah said. "He's different when you're not around." Julia frowned. "Different how?" "He controls everything," Noah continued. "We have to walk a certain way, sit a certain way. He got mad at me for folding my napkin wrong. And when Lily sings or plays, he just stares at her, like she's doing something wrong." Julia turned to Lily. "Sweetheart, is that true?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "He watches me at night too," she whispered. "When I'm in bed." A chill went through the room. I saw Julia's posture stiffen, her fingers tightening on the hem of her sleeve. "Did he ever touch you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lily shook her head quickly. "No. But I don't like the way he looks at me." Julia let out a slow breath, her eyes darting toward me. I could see the war going on inside her, the instinct to defend Daniel, to dismiss the kid's fears, fighting against the doubt creeping in. For the first time, I saw hesitation in her face. I pressed my advantage. "Julia, I found an old police report from one of his exes. She called him dangerous. Said she had to leave before it was too late." Julia snapped her head up. "You what?" "I had to look into him," I said calmly. "You didn't. But now you have the chance to do the right thing." She let out a shaky breath. I need to talk to him." "No," Noah blurted out, his voice urgent. "Mom, you can't tell him we're here. He's gonna be mad." Lily clutched her rabbit tighter. "He scares me, Mommy." Julia looked at them, truly looked at them. And for the first time since she walked in, I saw it, the first crack in her certainty. The first sign that she was finally beginning to believe them. Julia sat frozen, her mind racing. I could see it in the way she gripped the couch cushion, her breathing uneven. She was finally questioning everything. But doubt wasn't enough. "You can't just talk to him, Julia," I said gently. "You need to get out." Her eyes flicked to me, then to the kids. I can't just leave, not like this. I need to see for myself. Maybe he's just..." "Mom, no," Noah interrupted. "You don't get it. He's different when you're not looking. If he knows we told you, it'll be worse." Lily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please don't make us go back." Julia swallowed hard. She hesitated. I need time to think. I exhaled, trying to stay calm. Julia, listen to me. He's not going to let you go that easily. She rubbed her temples. I have to go home. I'll talk to him, feel him out. I won't tell him the kids are here, I promise. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to shake her and make her see. But I also knew Julia. If I pushed too hard, she'd dig in her heels. So I nodded slowly. Fine. But if anything feels off, anything at all, you get out. No second chances. She looked at the kids, her face conflicted. I'll come back tomorrow. Then she left. Noah's face was tight with frustration. She's gonna go back to him. She's scared, I said. But she's starting to see the truth. Noah shook his head. He won't let her leave, Dad. You don't get it. I did get it. And that's what terrified me. Julia didn't call that night. The next morning, she didn't show up. By noon, my gut told me something was wrong. By evening, my phone finally rang. But it wasn't Julia. It was Daniel. And his voice was ice cold. We need to talk. I stared at my phone, Daniel's name glowing on the screen. My instincts screamed at me not to answer. But I had to. I picked up. Daniel, I said, keeping my voice steady. There was a pause, then his voice smooth, calm, but with an edge underneath. I believe you have something that belongs to me. My grip on the phone tightened. If you're talking about Noah and Lily, they're not property. They're my children. Another pause. Then a quiet chuckle. Right. And their mother, the one they actually live with, seems to be missing. Any idea where she is? A cold knot formed in my stomach. She was supposed to come back here. I haven't heard from her. Silence. Then, I don't like being lied to. Something in his tone made the hairs on my arms stand up. I'm not lying, I said carefully. Maybe you should check your house. Oh, I have, Daniel said smoothly. And let's just say, I know she spoke to you last night. I clenched my jaw. He was testing me, trying to see what I knew. Julia makes her own choices, I said. If she left, maybe that tells you something. A long pause. Then Daniel's voice dropped lower. I don't lose, Mark. And I don't share. Julia is mine. The kids are hers. I felt a burning anger rise in my chest. They're ours, I snapped. And they don't want to be anywhere near you. Another eerie silence. Then, his voice turned eerily polite. Well, I suppose we'll have to settle this properly. The line went dead. I pulled the phone away, my heart pounding. Something was wrong. Daniel wasn't angry. He was calculating. And I had the terrible feeling that whatever he planned next, he wouldn't be playing fair. The moment Daniel hung up, I knew I had to act fast. I tried calling Julia. No answer. I sent a text, "Where are you? Are you safe?" No reply. Noah and Lily were in the living room, trying to distract themselves with a movie, but I could see the tension in their faces. They knew something was wrong. I sat down beside them, forcing my voice to stay calm. Hey, guys. When was the last time you saw Mom? Noah hesitated. Yesterday morning. She was on the phone with Daniel before we left. She sounded weird. Lily curled into herself. I heard her crying in her room the night before. A chill ran through me. I knew Julia. She had doubts, but she wasn't reckless. If she hadn't called, if she hadn't come back, it wasn't because she didn't want to. It was because she couldn't. I stood up, grabbing my car keys. Stay here, I told the kids. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me. Noah's eyes darkened with understanding. You think something happened to Mom? I hesitated. I think I need to make sure she's okay. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police. But before I could press call, my screen lit up. Unknown number calling. My stomach clenched. I answered. A woman's shaky voice whispered, "Mark." "Julia?" I gripped the phone. "Where are you?" I can't talk long," she stammered. "Daniel, he knows. He took my phone." Her voice hitched, like she was struggling to breathe. "He won't let me leave." My blood turned to ice. "Julia, listen to me." "Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you." A rustling sound. A sharp intake of breath. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, she whispered, "He's watching me." The call cut off. And I knew, without a doubt, Julia was in serious danger. The second the call cut off, I was already moving. I grabbed my keys, threw on my jacket, and turned to Noah and Lily. "I need you both to stay here. No matter what." Noah looked up, his face tight with worry. "Dad, what if he comes here?" I crouched down to his level. I locked the security system. Nobody's getting in. I glanced at Lily, her small hands gripping her stuffed rabbit. "You guys stay put. I'll bring Mom back." I didn't wait for their protests. By the time I pulled up in front of Daniel's massive estate, the sky had darkened. His house was as grand as ever, polished, cold, empty. But I knew Julia was inside. I wasn't thinking straight. I should have called the police. But my gut told me I didn't have time to wait. I took a breath and knocked on the door. A long pause. Then, the door creaked open. Daniel stood there, perfectly composed, a polite smile on his face. "Well," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "I was wondering when you'd show up." I forced my voice to stay calm. "Where's Julia?" His smile widened. "She's inside, of course. But you see, she's resting. It's been a stressful day for her." Something about the way he said it made my blood boil. "I want to see her," I said firmly. "Now." Daniel tilted his head, studying me like I was an insect. Then, with a smirk, he stepped aside. "Be my guest." I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me not to walk into that house. But I had no choice. I stepped inside. And the moment the door shut behind me, I knew I had just made a mistake. The air inside Daniel's house felt different, too still, too quiet. I followed him through the grand hallway, my fists clenched at my sides. The walls were lined with expensive art, the furniture pristine, but none of it mattered. Only one thing did. "Where's Julia?" I demanded. Daniel chuckled, leading me deeper into the house. "You're awfully impatient." I ignored him, my eyes scanning every doorway. Then I saw it, a faint movement down the hall. A glimpse of brown hair. Julia. She was standing near the staircase, her arms wrapped around herself. Her face was pale, her eyes darting between me and Daniel. "Mark," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "You shouldn't have come." My gut twisted. "Julia, let's go." Daniel exhaled dramatically. "Go? Just like that? Without a proper goodbye?" I took a step forward, but Daniel moved faster. In one swift motion, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He turned the screen toward me. A live security feed. My house. My front door. My kids. A man in black standing just outside, peering through the window. My heart stopped. Daniel smiled. "You came alone, didn't you?" Rage surged through me, but I forced myself to stay still. "Think, Mark. Stay calm. What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. Daniel's smile never faltered. "I want what's mine." His eyes flicked toward Julia. "And you? You're going to walk away." Julia's breath hitched. I clenched my jaw. And if I don't? Daniel tapped his phone screen. The man outside my house took a step closer. I felt the weight of my next move settle in my chest. Daniel thought he had one. But he had just made a mistake. Because now? I wasn't walking away. Every instinct told me to lunge at him, to knock that smug smile off his face. But I couldn't afford to be reckless, not when my kids were in danger. I forced myself to stay calm. You're making a mistake, Daniel. He chuckled, shaking his head. No, Mark. You made the mistake when you came here alone. He tapped his phone again. The man outside my house moved to the front door. My pulse pounded in my ears. But Daniel didn't know one thing. He wasn't the only one with a plan. I pulled my own phone from my pocket, turned the screen toward him, and hit play. His voice rang out through the room, his own chilling words from our earlier phone call. I don't lose, Mark. And I don't share. Julia is mine. The kids are hers. Daniel's smirk faltered. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I recorded everything, Daniel. Every threat. Every word. His fingers tightened around his phone, but I wasn't done. You see, while you were busy playing your little power game, I called the police. I turned my screen again, showing the ongoing call with 911. The timer read 4 minutes, 52 seconds. They'd been listening this whole time. Daniel's face darkened. You. A loud knock at the front door cut him off. His security feed flashed. Not his man this time. Police. Julia gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Daniel turned to me, fury burning in his eyes. But for the first time, I saw something else, too: panic. I stepped back, grabbing Julia's wrist. This is over. The door burst open. 2 officers stormed in, weapons drawn. Daniel Westwood, one of them called. Hands where we can see them. For a moment, I thought he might fight it. But then his shoulders slumped, his expression shifting from fury to cold calculation. As the officers moved in, Julia gripped my hand, her whole body trembling. You recorded him, she whispered. I squeezed her fingers. I wasn't going to lose you. Her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years: relief. Behind us, Daniel was being forced to his knees, his perfect world collapsing. And for the first time, I knew. This nightmare was finally ending. The ride home was quiet. Julia sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her hands still trembling slightly. I could tell she was replaying everything in her mind: Daniel's threats, his control, the way it all unraveled so quickly. I reached over, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. You're safe now, I said softly. She let out a shaky breath. I can't believe I let it get this far. I didn't say I told you so. She already knew. When we pulled into the driveway, the front porch light was on. Through the window, I saw Noah and Lily sitting on the couch, waiting. The second we stepped inside, Lily ran straight into Julia's arms. Mommy, she sobbed. Julia hugged her tightly, burying her face in Lily's hair. I'm here, baby, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Noah stood back, his arms crossed. I could see the hesitation in his face, the anger he had built up over the past few months. But when Julia turned to him, her eyes filled with regret, he finally stepped forward. I was supposed to protect you, she said. But you protected me. Noah swallowed hard, then hugged her. I exhaled, feeling the weight lift from my chest. We were home. We were safe. And for the first time in a long time, I knew our family was whole again. The end.